Hello from quarantine. My name is Jane, and this is Not My Type. No girl could ever refuse a date from Charles Spiffington III. Born into a wealthy family, he was blue blood, and from a young age, Baby was given whatever Baby needed, wanted, or desired without question. Growing up, his father pulled some strings in the corporate world and arranged a high-paying job for his son. So even into adulthood, Charles could afford whatever luxuries he desired, be it expensive cars, designer clothing, or even a grand yacht, perfect from vacationing from that corporate job. But what Charles was truly missing was human connection. He was missing love. But admittedly, having so much money, so much power, he didn't see the need to polish his personality at all. He could charm his way into any girl's heart, and who could say no? He was Charles Spiffington III, and no one had ever refused a date from him, except for one Jillian Hackworth. You see, Charles had bumped into Jillian one day at a cafe, much like he frequently bumped into pretty young women with big doe eyes and vulnerable posture, but this girl was different. This girl was not his type by any means. He couldn't quite place his finger on it until he noticed that she wore glasses. She maybe even had an astigmatism. She was quirky. She was cute. She was unique. She was the epitome of a manic pixie dream girl, and Charles knew that dating her would solve all of his problems. So he introduced himself and led her to a table. He ordered himself and, "Jilly, can I call you Jilly?" Some coffee, the finest, blackest roast, and some pumpkin bread. It was in season. And for the next few hours, they talked about their favorite NPR podcasts, Malcolm Gladwell books, even Wes Anderson movies. And the time slipped by, but soon it was time for Jilly to go home. So she thanked him for the coffee, the conversation, the pumpkin bread, and as she turned away to go, Charles reached out and grabbed for her hand gently, but he grabbed her. He said, "Jilly, I had the most wonderful time with you today, and I would love to see you again sometime. Let me make you dinner sometime. Maybe we can watch those kitschy movies that you love so much. It'll be my treat. Just please let me get to know you a little better." And he watched as her sweet smile slowly turned into a sour scowl. "I'm sorry, Charles. It's just, well, you're not my type." And with that, she turned on her heel and walked out of the cafe. Charles was dumbstruck. It felt like she put a tiny little pin in that little red heart of his, and he just deflated like a water balloon. He tried to slough it off. "I'm Charles Spiffington III. There are plenty of fish in the sea. I'll find somebody someday." But that was Jillian Hackworth, the perfect girl for him. Charles knew from her conversation that she was a creature of habit. He also knew of his own determination, so he made it a point to go to the cafe the next day at the exact same time. The exact same table. He brought along with him Baby's breath. Maybe she liked flowers. And he sat at the table and waited for her to come, and when she did come for her morning coffee, she walked through the doors, spotted him sitting there with the bunch of flowers, turned on her heel, and walked out. This did nothing to dissuade Charles. The next day, he brought roses with him, sat at the exact same spot as their first moments together, but again, she walked into the cafe, spotted him sitting there, turned on her heel, and walked out. This went on for quite some time. Days turned into weeks into months, and whenever Jilly spotted him, turned on her heel, and walked out for what felt like the 100th time, Charles took the daisies that he brought with him, threw them on the ground, and started stamping on them like a little toddler, much to the alarm of the other customers in the cafe. But Charles didn't care. He was never hysterical. He was never psycho. He could afford these outbursts because he was motivated. He was driven. He was the alpha male, and nothing stopped him from screaming out, "That is it! Jillian Hackworth, I don't care what you say. I'm going to make you my girlfriend if it's the last thing I do!" Ooh. Yikes. The next day, when Jilly walked in, spotted him sitting there, and walked out, he hopped into his black Mercedes. It was the most inconspicuous of his vehicles, and he followed her to what he could only guess was her home. As he drove, The canopy of trees grew thicker and thicker and thicker, and the phosphorescent street lamps grew dimmer and dimmer and flickered and failed to frequent his eyesight as often. But all he was thinking about was Jilly. Perfect Jilly. Astigmatism Jilly. And that's all he was thinking about when he rapped on our door and shouted her name. Suddenly a voice squeaked from the mail slot beneath him. Charles? What are you doing here? Did you follow me home? Jilly, you just gotta tell me what I did wrong. Why won't you go out with me? We obviously have a lot in common, okay? You like coffee. I like coffee. You like pumpkin bread. I like pumpkin bread. You like Grand Budapest Hotel and I like movies. Okay, we're perfect for each other. Why won't you go out with me? I already told you, Charles. You're not my type. Okay, well, if I'm not your type, then who is, huh? Who else will go out with you? Who else will buy you expensive jewelry, take you to the finest restaurants? I will treat you like royalty. Who else would do that? Who are you holding out for? Is it a bad boy? Are you into the bad boy type? Because I could be bad. I could wear leather. I could learn to ride a motorcycle. You just watch me. I'll be anybody you want me to be. The door opened and she stood there face to face with him. Charles, don't learn how to ride a motorcycle. No, don't wear leather. You're just not my type. But if you really want to know what my type is, why don't you just step inside? Okay, he finally felt like his determination was paying off. So we walked through the doors. See that door at the end of the hall? Open it. You'll find the type of guy I like. Charles did as he was told. He walked to the hall and opened the door, and there he found a staircase that led down, 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 and he walked down the staircase. He began to wonder what she was about to show him. Maybe some old scrapbooks of her past relationship, maybe some clothes, sweatshirts her ex left behind. But those thoughts left his head as an astringent smell replaced them. He couldn't quite place his finger on it, but it was eerily familiar. Something about freshman year biology, dissection labs. Oh, formaldehyde. Yeah, that's it, formaldehyde. He felt around for the light switch, and his eyes adjusted against the lonely bulb that hung in the basement. And his eyes squinted as he faced 12 men. Some stuck to the walls like butterfly exhibits. Some suspended from the air like they were hung from a pulley system. But most lined up in white pine boxes facing a grand fireplace, and that fireplace was punctuated by 12 mounted heads above a cold, cold hearth. Their eyes were open, their corneas were congealed, and all had lipstick stains on their cheeks. I told you, Charles. You're just not my type. But I want you to be.